Bill Clinton was speaking in Flint, Michigan, and the issue of Obamacare came up. And he said some pretty curious things that weren't supportive of Obamacare whatsoever. Take a look.
But the people that are getting killed in this deal are small business people and individuals who make just a little too much to get any of these subsidies. Why? Because they're not organized, they don't have any bargaining power with insurance companies, and they're getting whacked. So you've got this crazy system where all of a sudden 25 million more people have health care, and then the people are out there busting it sometimes 60 hours a week, wind up with their premiums doubled and their coverage cut in half. It's the craziest thing in the world.
What? What just happened? By the way, I mean, his criticism is not wrong, right? There are severe issues with Obamacare, which was something that came up quite a bit during the primaries. Bernie Sanders was very clear about the fact that he wanted universal health care. He wanted to approve upon the healthcare system that we have in place right now because it's not working for some people, right? There are good things that came along with Obamacare, but there are a lot of bad things that came along with it as well, if you ask me, including the fact that you're forced to buy private insurance.
So, look, those are the same exact complaints we had in the middle of the Obamacare fight. We said this thing is too right-wing. It makes us buy private insurance. In fact, we know that because it was actually a right-wing idea from the Heritage Foundation, a right-wing conservative think tank. It was originally instituted in Massachusetts by Mitt Romney. See, these are the false choices we have. You go with either Mitt Romney, which has Romneycare, or Barack Obama, which is Obamacare, which is, by the way, identical. It's the same thing. False choices, right? So if you're criticizing Obamacare on those grounds, I hear you. Although I actually think Bill Clinton, even from if you were going to take it from a progressive conservative perspective, although I don't think that's where he was coming from, went too far. Mm-hmm. Like, talking about doubling rates, that's not true, right? He actually went, some of that was not factual.
Didn't some people have their premiums double?
Look, I don't know if you could find one or two cases of that, but in mass, no, it was not doubled. Mm-hmm. Are prices going up?
Yeah,
yes.
Prices
but
definitely
remember, before Obamacare, prices were also going up. In fact, they were going up tremendously. Now, I think that Obamacare, if it had, for example, a public option, could have contained some of those cost issues. Instead, it didn't. Mm-hmm. So we're not talking here of a big defense of Obamacare. We're not flipping out because Bill Clinton said something unbelievable about Obamacare. What is amazing about this story is that he would say this in the middle of a presidential run, just a little over 30 days left. Well, his wife is running for president. His wife backs Obamacare 100%. President Obama is set to give a speech tomorrow in Florida defending Obamacare. And Bill Clinton comes in and undermines him and undercuts both Barack Obama and his own wife running for president. That's a crazy thing to say in the middle of this campaign.
I know what's happening. Bill Clinton is secretly a Trump supporter. That's what's really happening.
No,
it's
but
conspiracy.
Look, there are three possibilities as to why he says this. Bill Clinton is not coming at it from a progressive perspective. He doesn't back a public option. And simple possibility number one is Bill Clinton is a fairly conservative guy. And that's why a lot of progressives didn't like him when he was president. He ended welfare. He increased the number of people going to prisons, the prison industrial complex. So, look, and a lot of people were in favor of that. I get it, yada, yada. So you can go on down the list of things that Bill Clinton didn't have to. Again, you could have an argument about that. He deregulated the banks. You cannot have an argument about that. That was hideously conservative. Okay, anyway, so simple idea is he's attacking Obamacare like conservatives would because he's largely conservative, okay? So center-right, not like crazy right, but center-right, okay. The second theory is that he's losing it, okay? And this theory is out there. I'm not the one who came up with it. Like, that's why they don't have him on the campaign trail so much. I mean, you'd think like Bill Clinton, that guy should be on the trail nonstop. Wasn't he one of the greatest American politicians, certain of our lifetimes, right? Whether you agree with him or not, he knew how to win elections. He knew how to appeal to the American people. He knew how to get progressives and conservatives at the same time, etc. But he's not on the campaign trail as much as you would expect because he's a loose cannon. Is he a loose cannon because of age, etc.? We don't know. Okay, now, I think the third theory is the best one, though, which is that he has such a gigantic ego, he can't help himself. So when he's out there, he wants to undercut Obama because in his mind, I was a better president, I was a better president, I was a better president, okay?
Yeah.
And there is also another theory out there, talked about, not on air often, but definitely behind the scenes, that he he's ambivalent about Hillary Clinton's run. Like, I'm the guy who made it, you know, and I'm the one who was president. I'm the one who got everything, right? And so now you're playing pop psychology. I get it.
I know, it's all speculation, so let's be clear about that. And I don't know, I'm actually uncomfortable with all of those theories. I don't know if any of them are true. And the only thing that I do know is true is that he said what he said. And what I find so interesting is that Hillary Clinton's constant line of attack against Bernie Sanders was that he wanted to repeal Obamacare, which he did not want to do. He never said he wanted to repeal Obamacare. He just simply said Obamacare has significant flaws and we need universal health care, right? And that was, again, a point of attack for Hillary Clinton. And I think that it helped her to some extent in the primaries. It helped her get votes. And then you have your husband turning around talking shit about Obamacare. And then not only that, in the past, Hillary Clinton herself was criticizing Obamacare. And so that's the part of it that bothers me the most, right? Like the fakeness that happened in the primaries, the manipulation, the lies that happened in the primaries. And now we're left with a situation where we have one Republican candidate who's so hideous that you feel like you have to support the Democratic candidate that you're angry and upset about for being a liar and for manipulating, people during the primaries. So I don't know. That's the part that drives me crazy.
And so, do you think, bottom line, Clinton's get into office? Do you think they're going to make Obamacare more progressive?
No.
That is not how it appears. If this is, look, you can say all you want about why Bill Clinton, and I did, why Bill Clinton might have done this, but you can't argue that this is his real opinion. It is. There's no question. You wouldn't say this if this wasn't your real opinion.
Especially since it's so risky to say at this time.
Yeah, and so his real opinion is Obamacare is too progressive. I would make it more conservative. And he has, in the past, he got into trouble for the same exact thing before. Back in 2013, he talked about how we need to turn to the Republicans to help fix Obamacare. They are conservative at their heart. They're not wildly, insanely conservative like Trump, but they are center-right. Now, that if some of you go out there and go, oh, well, that's it. That's voting against the Clintons. Okay, I get it, right? But at the same time, center-right is terrible, and that's why we fought it, and that's why we will fight it, and that's why I would be shocked if there weren't a primary against Hillary Clinton, and that I would be shocked if she didn't merit it in 2020. Is it worse than insane right? No, it's not worse than insane right. It's slightly better than insane right, or maybe a lot better than insane right. It doesn't make it correct, though. So that's why I would encourage sanity, which is don't let Trump win, but buyer beware on the Clintons. And so it's not like the minute they get into office, you know what the media will do? They'll yell at us and say, no, you got to be fair to them. You have to give them 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before you ever judge them. No, I know what I'm getting. I've had 40 years. I know what the Clintons are, okay? So yes, we fight them on day one. But don't do what Bill Clinton is doing, which is fight him right now. Like, he's undermining her own campaign, and it's unbelievable. Here's what won't happen to you if you're a TYT member.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Well, we're not going to kick you out the door. We welcome you. Be part of independent media. Be the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.